Hello and welcome to what will hopefully be the first of many cooking episodes. Today we're going to start off with a basic no-knead artesian bread recipe. I've preheated my oven to 200 degrees Fahrenheit and then I shut it off. I'll explain that shortly. Inside the microwave I've just warmed up 1 3/4 cup of water. So we'll add that to the bowl. I microwaved the water for about 1.5 minutes. Forgot the spoons. So we're going to add 1 1/8 teaspoon of yeast to the water. Next we're going to add 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt. Now I'm going to give that a quick little whisk so the salt dissolves and the yeast combines with the water better. Next we'll add 3.5 cups. That was close. Next we're going to add 3.5 cups of flour. I use bread flour, but you can use regular white flour as well. Now with the handle of my wooden spoon, I'm just going to combine the wet and dry ingredients together. I'm going to take the spatula and scrape the sides so I can get as much of the flour into the mixture as possible. So you want to have something like this when you mix your dough together. A nice spongy mixture. Now I'm going to cover the bowl with saran wrap and put that in the oven. So the reason I preheated the oven to 200 and then shut it off is because you need a temperature of around 80 degrees Celsius. You need a temperature of around 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 degrees Celsius, somewhere in there for the yeast to work properly. So I'm going to put this in the oven and then I'm going to use a drying cloth and keep the oven door propped open. That way the excess heat can come out and the yeast can work properly. Also, you want to make sure your dough isn't too dry or else the yeast won't activate with the moisture properly. And you also don't want your dough too wet because the yeast won't work properly. So you need to have it at that right spongy consistency for the yeast to activate properly. So we're going to let that sit in the oven now for about 1.5 hours to 2 hours for it to proof and double in size. See you shortly. It's been about 2 hours, but before I pull the dough out of the oven, there's a couple things I want to do first. I want to butter the pan, and I'm also going to put down a little bit of flour on the countertop here so I can work the dough a little bit. Now let's see how well the dough has risen. And it has risen beautifully. So now with the wooden spoon again, we're just going to degas the dough. I know I said it's a no-knead dough, but I am going to knead it just a little bit just to get the extra air bubbles out of it. Now I'm going to shape it roughly for the size of the pan, then I'll work it into the pan a little bit more. So I'm squishing the dough from the center into the corners so it's all evenly distributed. Now we'll cover that, let it sit for another 45 minutes to proof up a second time. Then we'll throw it into the oven at 350 degrees for about 30 to 40 minutes. The rack is in the middle of the oven, and I'll come back in about half an hour's time and turn the oven on to 350. It's been about 45 minutes. Let's see how well the bread has risen. Ooh, looks good. So let's put this in the oven for half an hour to 40 minutes and see how it turns out. So that's on the rack in the middle of the oven at 350 degrees. The bread has been cooking for about 40 minutes now. It looks about done. Let's take a look at it. Ow, ow. The one thing I'd like to do is put butter on the crust. The one thing I like to do is put butter on the crust because it will soften the crust. Otherwise it turns out to be pretty crunchy. And if you want a crunchy crust, don't put butter on it. Ow! That's hot. And that's what it looks like. The one thing about this recipe though, the bread doesn't toast. It does not like being toasted. If you put it in your toaster, you probably have to put it in for twice as long as you normally do if you want to try getting any color onto this bread. Okay, so that's it for this recipe. Until next time, enjoy.